Howdy, boys and girls, and welcome to the Barry White edition, otherwise known as Week 6, otherwise known as Hurricane Matthew, otherwise known as the Carla and Crappy Show. Hi, Carla.
Hi, Crappy. That doesn't sound all that great.
We have all kinds of different joys. We could do this. But to start with, Carla and I both had colds in the last few days. Carla sounds like she's mostly recovered. My voice may give out entirely while we're talking about this week's game. So we'll see how that goes. Carla,
can you pass a cold through these? Is that how we managed to do that?
Mine. That's why I have this thing. This will protect you and everybody else from my germs. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah, but I had it first. So did I give it to you through this last week? If I did, I'm sorry.
That's an excellent. I don't know. So while you were laying on the couch convalescing last weekend, did you learn anything about college football?
Watched some stuff. I learned the thing that you should always learn when you're watching SEC football, and that is to never leave the room if there's any time remaining in the game.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Tennessee, Georgia, for that lesson. I actually didn't leave the room. Husband did, and I screamed pretty loudly when that ball was caught in the end zone. And he came running in thinking the same thing happened a couple years ago. He screamed about an ending of the game, and I thought he had gotten hurt. And I ran downstairs to find out what had gone on.
God,
and then yeah, exactly. I heard a scream from the basement. And I was like, "Oh, what happened?" And the same thing happened again this Saturday. I screamed in the living room when he came running. I was like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Tennessee just won that game." But yeah, what a crazy ending to that game. So yeah, the unpredictability of this season continues, and we teetered on that edge last week again of all out crazy. I mean, we were right there, especially with when we kind of got it with Tennessee winning on the second Hail Mary of the same game, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And Carolina winning on a 57-yard field goal.
I
had plenty of leg.
It was a quarter mile or something like that. It was impressive.
They could have hit from 60 when you saw the kick. I mean, he could have hit from 60. So I guess that's the thing. No, don't leave until the clocks say zero and they're shaking hands. That's my lesson.
Okay. I didn't know any lessons other than I just kind of up my stress level as I go through my personal fandom. Given that Indiana was able to beat Michigan State in overtime on Saturday, and Ohio State has struggled with Indiana in recent years. There was a game that needed every single bit of the clock in Bloomington a couple years ago to win that. Even last year, and that was granted, that was right when Ohio State was having kind of its worst offensive struggles. But the Hoosiers have not been an automatic thing recently, and so I'm going to be sweating a little bit come 3:30 on Saturday. One thing I will not have to contend with. I assume anyway. It sounds like it's going to be a gorgeous day in Columbus. That is not going to be the case for much of the college football world on Saturday. Obviously, Hurricane Matthew moving up the coast. It is scheduled, at least at last time we looked, to be around Florida, to be prime SEC country and along the Atlantic coast. Hey, on Saturday, so as you and I were kind of discussing today, what games we should talk about, it's like, well, that one's kind of iffy, and that one, oh geez, I don't know if that one's going to go, and maybe not this one. So what we decided to do, we decided to lump three of the best games, and these are good ones. These are all legit games into something we're going to call the Hurricane Round. We're going to whip through them quickly at Category 3 speed. And then we'll come back with a couple others, equally legit games, and talk about them a little bit more in depth. Carla, are you ready for the Hurricane Round?
As ready as I'll ever be. Batten down the hatches.
Batten down the hatches, board up the windows, make yourself a cocktail. We start with LSU at number 18, Florida. LSU is favored by 2.5 to 3 points. Who you got?
So LSU decided to find its offense when it found itself a new head coach. Ed Orgeron, and you kind of expected that last week coming off of everything that had gone on. You kind of expected LSU to play over its head. But I'm not sure anybody expected that level of domination against Missouri. The big thing, and I mentioned that I had notes on this game and then had to throw them away because earlier today it looked like Leonard Fournette was going to play in this game. I just did a quick search to check something real quick. And now it looks like Leonard Fournette will not play this weekend. Right. He's been battling that ankle injury, so it'll be interesting to find out whether or not he goes. But even without him, they rushed for over 400 yards last week. Compare that to a Florida team, which will get Luke Del Rio back this week, which is a good thing for their offense. But my gosh, this is an offense that kind of reversed itself after we thought the offense maybe had figured itself out.
Right.
Struggled just down the street here against Vanderbilt. And it has a very limited run game. Looking at, like, it rushed for just 106 yards against Tennessee and not even 100 against Vandy. Thinking weather conditions in this one, you've got to think this is going to be, if they manage to get the game off, it's going to be wet. It's going to be sloppy. You got to favor LSU in this one simply because of the ground attack.
Okay, and I would go that I would go pick the same thing. I think change of scenery is that sort of thing is still in effect. I think a strong rushing game with or without Leonard Fournette is the thing that's going to be necessary. They were talking. I looked just before we started. They were talking about moving the start time to a little bit later on Saturday. I guess playing this at LSU is not an option. But I'm gonna go with the Tigers to continue their newfound success with their new coach. Next up, we go a little bit further north, but certainly not out of the storm area. Virginia Tech at number 17, North Carolina, with the kid with the mighty kicking leg. Carolina is a 2.5 to 3 point favorite. Who you got?
Last time we heard from Virginia Tech, they were losing at Bristol.
Yes.
That was the Virginia Tech played that big televised game against Tennessee and then kind of fell off everybody's radar because they played Boston College and ECU in consecutive weeks. But in those 2 weeks, they outscored both of those teams 103-17. They found their offense again. The other thing they also found was their pass defense. Virginia Tech is ranked number 10 in the country in pass defense right now. Carolina, coming off of the 67, 85, whatever yard kick. They've won both their last 2 games by a total of 3 points, which is, this is a team that has figured out a way to win really close games. And we know they can kick, which is a good thing to have when this looks like this could be a really close game. The key here is that their defense is questionable. They've been averaging over 450 yards a game allowed, which is kind of ridiculous. Meanwhile, the North Carolina offense has been averaging more than 340 yards per game passing, going up against the Virginia Tech number 10 pass defense. This is again sloppy conditions, more than likely, regardless of where the storm actually is at that point. It's going to be raining if they get the game in. I like Virginia Tech because of that. Jared Evans can make plays. Both with his arm and with his legs, and I think in a sloppy game, I think the edge goes to Virginia Tech.
Okay,
but if there's 2 points, if it's a 2 point deficit, Carolina wins.
Okay, that's fair. I'm going to stick with North Carolina, and I think I think we're looking at a couple different levels of competition here, and maybe that works in the Tar Heels' favor. But again, of the 3 games that we're talking about in the Hurricane round, this is the one that looks tightest to me and toughest to predict.
Yeah.
I have a cat standing on my notes, so I'm gotta move that cord out of his mouth.
Charlie, get off of his notes.
I may lose my headphones here. God, cat.
Hi, Charlie.
So anyway,
welcome to the show.
I'm gonna stick with North Carolina on this one, but with the with the provision that this could be a really tight game and one of the best ones of the day. We wrap up the Hurricane round. Number 23 Florida State visiting number 10 Miami. Miami is a 3-point favorite. This game actually could be the worst of the storm. Could be past Miami when the time this game kicks off. So who knows what factor weather is going to be. What do you think about this one?
Miami very quietly 4-0.
Yes.
That's kind of the team that's right in the top 10, and nobody really knew about them.
Right.
Their wins are over Florida A&M, Florida Atlantic, Appy State, and Georgia Tech.
Yes.
So how proven is that 4-0?
Not much.
Florida State's a team. Yeah, Florida State's a team that's reeling at the moment. They got that big win over Ole Miss, and then now they're sitting at 0-2 in the ACC. So this is a team that needs a win in a big way, and I think they can get it this weekend because of these two things. One, Florida State has Dalvin Cook sitting in its backfield. That's always, again, sloppy conditions. You want a good running back in these situations. Florida State has proven they can run the football. They've got Dalvin Cook. Miami, Brad Kaya, off to a good start at quarterback. However, and this is a quote from Mark Richt from earlier this week, I don't know how well Brad Kaya throws a wet ball. They haven't practiced much in the rain.
Or go find out.
When your head coach is making those kinds of statements, though, yes. Florida State wins this game.
That's true. Now, do you wonder about gamesmanship at all? There are coaches that aren't above that sort of thing.
Mark Richt.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I am. You're correct in pointing out the Florida State, Miami at 4-0 is unremarkable resume so far, but I think they have done what you would expect them to do. We're going to talk about Tennessee here in a minute or two, and you look at Tennessee and you just scratch your head at how some of those games have gone. You look at what Miami's done, and they have handled their business. But the reason I'm going to pick Miami in this game is that how am I not going to pick the Hurricanes on the day that there's a hurricane going up the East Coast? Come on. It's that simple. It's that simple. We have a couple more games to pick that may or that actually probably won't be affected by the hurricane at all. But both one game is definitely, I think, the game of the weekend, and we're going to start there. We are spending a lot of time talking about Tennessee, and this week the number 9 Vols visit number 8 Texas A&M. The Aggies are favored by a touchdown. What kind of fun is Tennessee going to get into this week?
Who knows? I mean, how do you beat the last 2 weeks, right? You finally get the gator off your back, and then winning on that Hail Mary. But I kind of want to start with the Aggies here because nobody's really talked. This is another team kind of like Miami. Nobody's talked about them. They've kind of been flying under the radar, although they played better competition. This is kind of their first national spotlight game that they've had this season. Their quarterback is Trevor Knight, formerly of Oklahoma, and you wonder if Oklahoma is wishing, gosh, I wish he wouldn't have transferred. Because Trevor Knight's having a decent season. But so here's the thing that everybody says about Trevor Knight is that he doesn't have great accuracy, but he's getting the job done. Right. What's funny about this is that you could say the exact same thing about Josh Dobbs on the other side of the coin. His accuracy, not great, but he's getting the job done. Texas A&M needed overtime to get past UCLA in week 1. That loss again, that win. But the struggle going to overtime is looking better the better UCLA continues to play. So, okay, that's fine. The Aggies are 5-0 for the third consecutive year. And I think your cat just destroyed your house.
There are I can't not do this. There are laundry hampers that had been sitting up on top of this futon over here. They are now on the floor. And the cat is inside one of them. He's okay. He's fine. And I'm not editing that out. We're just so as you were saying,
batten down the hatches. He took it literally. I'm sorry. Yes, I shouldn't have said that. He's hiding, as one should if a hurricane is coming. Right. Okay. So anyhow, back to Texas A&M. the biggest statistical defense, and like I said, before we started recording, we both said that we were struggling with trying to figure out who was going to win this game, because if you look at these two teams on paper, they're almost identical.
Mm-hmm.
They both have quarterbacks that aren't great, but they're getting the job done when they have to, either with their legs or with their arm. Points scored about the same, yards allowed about the same. So points allowed about the same. Like, everything is pretty equal here, except for there's one big thing. Texas A&M has put up a lot of yards on offense. They have 521 total yards on offense per game, whereas Tennessee only has a little bit over 380.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Texas A&M showed this prowess against Arkansas last week and showed the ability to put up points. That's been, as we've seen from Tennessee, they like to dig themselves an early hole and try to climb out of it. This week, I don't think that's going to be an option. If they get down early in the game, the hole may be too high for them to climb out of it. So I think the key for Tennessee to try to win this game is to, for the first time this season, actually play the first quarter and decide to play those first few minutes instead of waiting to catch up with everything in the second quarter. Right. But I don't know. I've been hearing so much hype about Texas A&M and the teams. They've played really well against good competition. Playing at home, Kyle Field's a tough place to play. I'm going to give the edge to Texas A&M, I think. But gosh, this is another game that on paper, I mean, again, wait until the clocks say 0 before you change the channel, because it could be another one of those games.
It seems like we have talked about Tennessee every single week. They've sort of turned into the team that I don't care about, that I care about a little bit, because we've just been paying so much attention to them, whether intentionally or not. One concern I have about Texas A&M. It's certainly not the resume. It wins against UCLA. Say what you want to about Auburn, but the Arkansas, South Carolina, they have taken care of their business, and they've done it with a more impressive resume than the Miami team that we were just talking about. They have injuries to deal with, including a defensive end named Myles Garrett, who is not my late cat. Apparently his actual person, a couple receivers, one of the O-linemen, guys that may or may not be ready to play this weekend. That's a concern. This is a seat of the pants kind of pick. And I think I'm going to go with Tennessee. They have a feeling about them. They have a tremendous talent. It doesn't always show up until the second quarter or the second half, or if they're playing Ohio University, maybe it doesn't show up at all, and that game turns into something closer than it should be. But
Appy State.
Yeah, same thing. I'm going to pick Tennessee to continue that role this week on the road to Texas A&M, keeping in mind that the magic may end next week when they have Alabama. Well, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. And that brings us to our final game. Number 1 Alabama at number 16 Hoo-Pig Suey, and the embodiment of the Arkansas mascot, one of my favorite people in college football. Alabama's favored by
Bert.
Bert. Alabama is favored by 14 points. What do you think?
What do I think? Well, this is the first time we talked about Alabama in a while, which is kind of remarkable. But it's also not remarkable based on Alabama's schedule. They do this every year. They play the blockbuster game in week 1, and then we forget about them until week 6 or 7. Well, here we are in week 6, and we're talking about Alabama again. The big question we had about Alabama heading into the season was quarterback. And once again, here we are, proving the plug-and-play system in Alabama that Saban has set in there works. Because Jalen Hurts, once again, freshman, looking much more like an upperclassman under center. He's also second on the team in rushing. So that versatility is something that hasn't necessarily been a part of the Bama offense last year, having more of a pure pocket passer. That's added a new wrinkle into this. But, of course, it's the defense that's winning them these games, right? That's always been the signature thing for Alabama. And here's the ridiculous thing about Alabama. As of right now in the season, they are allowing just 68 yards per game rushing.
That's
and
crazy.
you look at who they've been, and so throughout the game against Ole Miss, because that game was an offensive anomaly, looking at the way, and defensive anomaly based on the rest of their season. So you throw out that game, and then the 4 other games that Alabama has played this year, they've allowed just 22 points combined. And those opponents aren't like the softballs that we've been laughing about with some of these other teams. Like, okay, but who have you played? The teams include USC, Western Kentucky, one of the better teams in Conference USA,
absolutely.
Kent State, and Kentucky, another SEC team. So, gosh, that's scary if you're going up against that. Are you afraid of the Alabama offense? Maybe not quite so much, but you've got to be kind of like shaking in your boots a little bit with this Alabama defense. The big thing here, though, is that Arkansas might actually line up okay against them, because Arkansas's offensive line is ridiculously huge. And potentially could be up for the task to kind of help protect their quarterback, Austin Allen, from the rush, from pass rushes, from blocks, from sacks. They have 2 running backs. They have a dual threat running back combination in Raleigh Williams and Dewar Whaley. It'll be interesting to see how that kind of all matches up. This is an Arkansas team that's finally playing with a little bit of confidence, yet still doesn't have an SEC win. The big problem that they've had is against Texas A&M last week. They showed this. They have the potential to give up big plays on defense, and they've been giving up about 23 points per game. So Alabama doesn't normally play for the big play. That's not the way they do. They dink and dunk and wear you down. If Alabama can adapt to that and find a way to connect on a couple of big plays, I think this is another situation where Alabama's defense is just going to keep wearing down on the Arkansas offense, and Alabama's going to come out with a win. But a couple years ago, this game was really, really close. I think it was just a 1-point difference. It would not stun me if this game is really, really close, just because of that physicality on the line. But I still think Alabama wins this game.
Okay. It doesn't often happen that my head and my heart agree on a pick. And in this instance, fortunately, they do. That will make this game interesting for me and fun for me to watch. Is a point well taken about Arkansas's offensive line. They appear to be made in the image of their head coach, which is kind of large and lumbering, and that is definitely a plus for the Razorbacks. I think we're talking about a different degree of athleticism, and I think while that may be something that works in Arkansas's favor early in the game. As you mentioned, what Alabama does, and is why they are so hard to play. There is no let up. The game is so physically demanding that you get worn down, and that happens with Alabama's offense against opponents. It can happen with the defense too, and I think that's going to be the case. I am not a fan of Arkansas's head coach, and I don't do this a great deal, but I do take delight in watching perhaps him struggle a bit, and I think that is going to be the case. I think 14 points is hopefully that will be that might even be a little bit light, but I see Alabama winning this one. And continuing to roll on to maybe to a more interesting game against Tennessee in the following week. That's all we got. Carl, you going to stay dry this weekend?
I think we are here. We're far enough inland. So I think it's going to be a beautiful weekend here, actually. They're calling for really nice weather. So it's going to get cool. It's actually going to feel like fall. So it'll be a nice weekend to kind of sit back and unfortunately watch a whole bunch of rain games is what it sounds like.
That's what it sounds like. I will be grilling approximately 75 bratwursts at our tailgate party, and then watching Ohio State and Indiana in what sounds like will be a gorgeous Saturday as well. Guys, I hope you guys stay dry. I hope you enjoy watching the games, whether they are dry ones or wet ones. Carla, thank you once again.
Yep, thanks as always.
Thank you guys for watching. We will talk to you again next week.